Welcome back to another episode from Checking From Behind. And first off, congratulations to the Florida Panthers for taking home the Stanley Cup over the 2023-24 season, defeating the Edmonton Oilers in 7 games. Kind of a scare there, almost blew a 3-0 lead.
Game 7 was awesome. Did you watch Game 7?
I ended up live streaming it. It was fun. It was really fun.
I feel bad for Connor McDavid. That dude did everything he possibly could to win them that game. But congrats to the Panthers. Like Zach said, hard fought series. Probably one of the best Stanley Cup Finals I can think of the last few years.
Honestly, it was the most watched Stanley Cup Finals in a long time, and in my opinion, it was the best to watch since the 2019 Finals.
Yeah, I felt like Game 7 was super competitive. It was super close. And I'll give kudos to Zach. Back around I think January or February, he predicted the Panthers to win the cup. I got pretty damn close.
Yeah,
I got one game away. I picked the Oilers to win the cup. We both got the final right though. So
and it's crazy too because we both got the conference finals right with our 4 picks, which is nuts. And you know what I think we should do next season before we move on to free agency and like off season, the draft and everything. What I think we should do next season is the picks that we pick in the off season. If they're still able to hit in the mid season, we stick with them. But if they're completely off, then we pick new ones for the mid season. And then if they're in the playoffs, no matter what, we have to stick with them.
And I agree with that. We should stick with our preseason predictions about who because
our picks 3 times over the season changed dramatically. So
I think that they start the year. I think we both had Carolina, right?
Yeah, we both had Carolina. I know. At least 2 of us had Vegas too. I think Chris had Vegas. I
think he picked Colorado.
Oh, did he pick Colorado? Okay, then me and you both had the Canes in Vegas. But I thought that was very impressive with their mid-season picks. Anyways, though, congratulations to the Panthers again. Hopefully they will repeat next season. Just kidding, it's Buffalo Sabres season.
Yes, sir.
Anyways, so the NHL entry draft just ended up happening, and we're not going to spend a ton of time on it. However, though, I thought the Flames had a really good draft. I thought the Ducks picking Bennett Seneka.
That was a shocker.
Whatever.
It's not necessarily a bad pick, but you just look at the other players over there, specifically like Demidov. He ends up falling to 5. Or what a steal for the Canadians to get him at 5. He's going to be electric there. I thought the Sharks had a really good draft, really strong first round. Obviously picking Celebrini.
Yeah.
And then Dickinson with their second pick in the first round, I thought was another really strong pick. Any really things surprise you from the draft, like players falling?
Yes, something surprised me. I'm bringing it up right now. Okay, I have it right here. What is up with the Philadelphia Flyers at 13th overall picking Jet Luchenko? There were so much other better guys on the board. Now, I'm happy. I'm 100% happy for him. Not his fault he got picked 13th. Just the Flyers. You could have traded down. If you really liked Jet Luchenko so much, you could have traded down and gotten more assets for the 13th overall pick, but you picked him, and I don't know what the thought process behind it was, but Luchenko and Seneki, those are my only 2 issues with the draft. I thought the Flames stole player after player wherever they were in the draft, position-wise. And also I thought, now I get, as a Sabres fan, I wanted the Sabres to trade the 14th overall pick. But getting Consta, I thought was a huge steal. He's one of the most NHL-ready players going into the draft and obviously coming out of the draft. And I've seen a lot of Sabres fans hating this pick, saying, oh, we had a horrible draft. They just don't know who Consta is. I
didn't know who he was.
I knew
he was not in either of our mock drafts.
I had him going 13 in Minnesota.
I don't even remember. I really like the pick of Zane Parecki to Calgary. Mm-hmm. I think it was probably the best offensive defenseman in this draft. I think Calgary needs anybody that could help him score. Probably, I don't see a lot of these guys really jump into the NHL right away. Obviously, Celebrini probably will. I see Levashov and maybe Demidov if Demidov decides to come over to United States right away. I don't think he's being held up by any KHL contracts, but yeah, I think he can make the jump to the NHL right away. This is kind of a wild, all over the place draft. Outside of Celebrini being the obvious number 1 pick, we kind of had no idea where anyone was going to go. Like I thought, Yamichuk, I probably said that wrong. I thought he went a little earlier than I thought he was going to go. I thought he was going to go around like 10, 11. Because for the most part, the teams I thought were going to pick defensemen, and the teams I thought were going to pick forward, except for Utah. They kind of needed a little bit of everything. I really like the Iginla pick for Utah. I think he's going to be a really strong player for a long. If he's anything like his dad, that's a great pick.
Like at the time, that pick was kind of puzzling because we still had Pareke, you had Dickinson, you had Bowie.
But little did we know they had something else cooking. So that's why they didn't pick the defenseman.
No. At the time, it seemed pointless. This is why you can't overreact about anything because, like, 14 hours later, you end up with Sergachev and you end up with
I think
Marino.
that's a good segue to get into the trade. So the Coyotes probably, I would say they probably had the biggest trade of the draft weekend.
They made 2 trades for 2 really good defensemen. They end up acquiring Mikhail Sergachev from Tampa. They send over J.J. Moser, Connor Geeky, a 2025 second and a 2024 7th-round pick. And then the other trade they made a couple hours later, they acquired John Marino from the Devils for pick 153 of this past draft. They sent over. They acquired pick 153 as well,
and then New Jersey 2 seconds, which I thought, I thought that was a little much 2 seconds, but I mean Utah has a ton of picks. I think they still have a bunch of 2nd-round picks. I mean,
they have a ton.
They still have 1 next year. They have 3 in 2026, so they still have a lot of picks. But that's the one thing when you generate a bunch of these draft capitals. You can trade it to get good players. Like, I thought they did pretty good on the Sergachev trade. Obviously, the biggest piece going back to Tampa Bay is Connor Geeky. But then they picked Tijagindla, which kind of replaces him in that prospect pool, which I think is fine for Utah. And you get a number 1 pair defenseman to play on your team. I wouldn't be shocked if Marino and Sergachev ended up being the number 1 pair for Utah next year. I mean, Utah needed a lot of work in a lot of places, but the good thing is they have a lot of cap space to work with, so they can sign these players, and they have a ton of draft capital. It is. I don't know. It's kind of conflicting because I feel bad for the Arizona fans because they lost their team, and I think for the longest time, the thing that was holding back the Coyotes was their ownership group. They didn't want to spend money, because they were losing money every year. People weren't going to games because the team sucked or the arena was so far out of the way. They didn't really have any playoff success. They were drafted relatively well for the most part, but a lot of those players wouldn't sign long-term contracts. They would trade them. Clayton Keller was kind of like the first one of their good prospects that decided to sign a long-term deal. And they get moved to Utah, and immediately they're finally acquiring players and being aggressive in trade moves. And if I'm a Coyotes fan, I'd be really pissed now.
I would be too. If I was a Coyotes fan though, I would be rooting for Utah, but I'd be like, dude, like we couldn't have this type of ownership.
While we're talking about this, I do want to bring this up. There's a little off topic from trade stuff, but what's going on with Alex Morello and the currently extinct Arizona Coyotes. So it sounds like it's not going to happen. So from what I heard, they filed like the wrong paperwork or something on the land auction because Alex Morello's an asshole, and I don't think he actually cares about having a hockey team in the desert. And it turns out they were going to be the only bidders anyway in the land, so the city just canceled it because they didn't have any applicants that filed the paperwork correctly. It sounds like the local government officials in Arizona hate him.
I don't blame him.
And he withdrew interest from it. And a thing I learned recently a few days ago, when this all was happening, is so that $1 billion he got from the NHL to move the team to Utah, if he would have got the Coyotes back, he would have had to give him that money back to the NHL as an expansion fee. But because if he does not end up bringing the Coyotes back, I mean, it could still happen. It's a 5-year window, so you never know what could happen. But at this point, I'd be a little bit surprised. He gets to keep the $1 billion.
Yeah, he needs to get his shit together. I mean, he's not going to because everybody in the NHL, the Arizona government, they don't like this dude.
I mean, I can't imagine how relieved the NHL is right now to have gotten that team out of there and saved the franchise. Could you imagine if they were still there right now and that happened where they literally don't have an arena now? Like, they don't even have a land to build an arena on? The NHL would have been screwed. So, I mean, it sounds like they knew something like this could happen. I'll give credit to Gary Bettman for once. I'm not a big fan of him, but they did a pretty good job getting that franchise out of there. And, say it could have been a way worse situation. I still think Arizona will end up with another team eventually. I really hope their new owner is not Alex Morello, though, because
it won't.
He's a horrible owner.
If there is another owner in Arizona, it won't be Morello. You can almost bet money on that. And when I heard the news of Morello kind of stepping down, like giving up on the Coyotes, bringing them back, I was
it hasn't even been 3 months.
Right. Like, come on. Like, you're not going to...
You have 5 years.
Right. You don't have to have the team... playing in 5 years. You just need to have a set plan in order to get them in the league.
The first fixed step was get an arena built.
If you have the plan of an arena built, a training facility, just in general blueprint of what you want, and then you get the land too. Let's say I don't know, in 3 years, whatever it happens, right? You have this set plan. Okay, you have the arena built in 3 years. You don't have a timeline of 5 years to get them on the ice. Like, as long as you have a plan, that's okay.
I mean,
but
I think the plan would be after that 5 years, probably that 6th year is probably when they'd be their first year of being back. Obviously, an arena would probably take 2 to 3 years to build. I don't know, depending how big it could be. I don't think a practice facility was something that necessarily needed immediately. I mean, would have been nice.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, I think 5 years is a pretty generous window to get an arena built, get your organization together, and get ready to have a team.
They could have given them 3 years, and like by the end of the summer,
3 years is pushing it. 3 years is pushing it, but I think the NHL gave him a pretty good offer. They gave him $1 billion, 5 years to find a team. If he was serious about wanting to own an NHL team, you set that money, that $1 billion aside, as hard as it is. Get your arena, because he's already a billionaire.
Yeah.
Get that arena built, get a new team, and you know what? If you run the organization right, you draft well, you get good players, you start making money. People will come to the games, especially if it's like that new arena was going to be in Tempe, a much better location from playing at Arizona State University or in Glendale where they played before. And, crazy thought here. If you have a good team, people will show up to watch them.
Wow.
Yeah. if you draft well and keep the players and, bring in free agents and not trade for LTIR contracts every year, like Coyotes legend Shea Weber, Pavel Datsyuk, Marian Hossa, Chris
2 of those
Pronger.
3 players right now just got inducted into the Hall of Fame. They're going to be.
All 4 players I just said are in the Hall of Fame.
Yeah.
I mean, Datsyuk and Shea Weber are going to be inducted, soon. But Pronger and Hossa are already in. So, I mean, if you put together like just the starting lineup with all the contracts they've traded for, like career-ending injuries, that'd be a really great start. That's great. I mean, you got like 6, 7 Hall of Famers on your team. That's incredible. But the problem is they weren't bringing any players that were actually good and could play.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, that's literally. I just wanted to bring that up real quick, because it was pretty big news. I know the Coyotes are no longer in the NHL, but it's still relevant to the NHL.
You know what? I think I should add a Pavel Datsyuk Arizona Coyotes jersey up there.
I don't even know if they're selling it anymore. They might be doing a clearance sale in the NHL shop. I mean, I'd love a Kachina jersey. I think those are going to be like a Thrashers jersey pretty soon. Like, really, really hard to find.
You're going to look back and you're like, those are sick. Don't know why I didn't get one earlier type of thing.
I mean, the Kachina jerseys are sick.
They
love those
really
jerseys.
are sick.
That was the coolest thing about the Coyotes.
So I want to stick with Utah real quick before we move on to the rest of the moves that were done yesterday. All right. I blurted out. I made a TikTok. I said the Utah Hockey Club can be a playoff team if they, with those 2 trades that they have yesterday. Are you jumping on the whole Coyotes can compete for a wild card spot, or is it?
I think they still have some more work to do. I mean, right now they only have 3 defensemen under contract, so they still need at least 3 more. I think Sean Durzi and Juuso Valimaki are both RFAs, so they'll probably stay on the team. I really like Sean Durzi. I think he's a good defenseman. Really good acquisition there from LA. But, they've already gotten better defensively just by adding Sergachev and Marino. Sergachev's got term on that contract. He's a number 1 pair defenseman.
26 years old.
They have a really Clayton Keller, Nick Schmaltz, Lawson Cross. I think Logan Cooley's going to be a stud. I still think they have some more pieces to add. They have a lot of cap space going into free agency. They have with LTIR candidates, so because they're still paying Shea Weber for this year and next year. And then that contract's off the books. They have $36 million in cap space still, even after acquiring Sergachev and that big contract. So they have a lot of money to spend. I think this ownership group is very serious about wanting to build a winner there immediately, because when you're in a new market, a new team, like Utah's never had an NHL team before. I believe they've had minor league hockey that do relatively well there, but minor league hockey is very different than the NHL.
Right.
You have a couple years where people are just going to be excited. We have a team. Like, this is awesome. We have NHL hockey, but if they suck, this is what happened in Atlanta. No one's going to go. Once that honeymoon period wears off, where you're excited just to have a team, and you're in year 4 or 5 and they still suck. You're like, oh, I'm not going to go to the games anymore. The novelty's worn off, and then. So I think the Smiths family, the husband and wife owners, I think they're very serious about wanting to get a good team out there as quick as possible. I mean, you've already seen with their trades, they've been very aggressive in acquiring players. I expect them to be aggressive in free agency as well.
They're going to acquire at least one big name. And what I want them to do is go out and get a bona fide goal scorer, add to the top 6. Now, it doesn't have to be a Steven Stamkos or again, so Reinhardt's going back to Florida. We'll get into that in a bit. or reportedly. But just go out and get somebody, like, even if they go out and get a Tyler Toffoli, like, that would help them so much.
I mean, I don't know if they're going to go get a big dog, because the more rumors we're hearing about the big dogs, and we'll get into that a little bit later, is there's not most of we already said Reinhardt's most likely staying in Florida. It sounds like Gensel's probably going to be with the Lightning.
Like Stamkos has narrowed down to like 2 teams, 1 team, 2 teams.
Yeah, so I mean, I think they can, maybe a guy like Jeff Skinner just got bought out by the Sabres. I think Skinner will have a market. I expect Seattle to be very interested in him as well. They're going to have their options for who they want. So, but I expect them to, they have a lot of roster holes they need to fill right now. They need 3 more defensemen at least. I think if they make the right moves, they can absolutely compete, at least be in the conversation for a wild card spot. I think if they made the playoffs, that'd be a little bit of a surprise.
Yeah.
But I expect this team to probably be a playoff team within 2 to 3 years at least.
I agree with that statement. There's other moves that have to be talked about. So that trades that happened yesterday during the second half of the draft. So do you want me to go by one by one, I'll just say them, and then we go over? Which ones do you want to go, like, one by one into them?
I mean, yeah, you can just go through them, like, one at a time. We could talk about them.
Okay. So the LA Kings acquired Tanner Jeannot, and then going to Tampa is a 2025 second-round pick, and then they also had pick 118 yesterday. The Capitals, we'll get into this in a bit. Logan Thompson gets traded to the Capitals, and Vegas gets pick 83 in a 2025 third. And then also the Wild acquire Jacob Luco, I believe that's how you pronounce it, pick 122. Yep. And the Bruins get Vinny Lettieri for pick 110. Vegas also acquires Alexander Holtz, Akir Schmid. The Devils in that trade get Paul Cotter in a 2024 third-round pick. Last but not least, the Maple Leafs acquire Chris Tanev's rights from the Stars, and for like a 7th-round pick and some AHL depth player.
Yeah, so I want to talk about Tampa real quick. I thought, they were interesting, clearing cap space. I'm kind of surprised they moved on from Sergachev. I think, like we said, he's I think he's one of the better, at least top 20, top 15 defensemen in the league. He missed almost all of last year, broke his leg, unfortunate. He did somehow come back to play a couple playoff games. I mean, it's kind of hard to ask him to make that big of an impact.
Wild.
After, I mean, their back was that was when they were down 3-1 against Florida, and they just needed him. Kind of surprised they moved on from him. But you saw, and then they moved Tanner Jeannot to. I thought they got a pretty decent return for Jeannot. I mean, they still got fleeced compared to what they gave up for him. But, to get a 2nd-round pick back, I thought was pretty impressive. They're clearing all this cap space, and you're like, okay, they're cooking something. People thought potentially moving money around to get Stamkos back. He's a franchise legend. He's a Hall of Famer. Probably have his number retired by the Lightning.
Yeah.
One of the best goal scorers, I think, in the NHL history. Stamkos has repeatedly said he wants to stay in Tampa Bay. He wants to retire as a member of the Lightning. And, going into the draft, I remember Elliot Freeman and others were saying, like, he's probably going to go to free agency. And if he goes to free agency, he will not be a member of the Lightning anymore. And so, they're moving all these contracts around. It's like, okay, they have a lot of cap space now. They can re-sign Stamkos. Doesn't sound like Lightning want to go that direction. I heard they did talk with him yesterday. So Saturday, the 29th, might have had a contract offer. He said no. He wants to see what's out there on the market. And so, fine, fuck it. We're going to get Jake Guentzel.
And, yeah, the Lightning traded for Jake Guentzel's UFA rights, which it came out of nowhere for trading for the rights, but he was rumored to be part of the, on the Lightning's radar. They were going to aggressively
Well, it was weird because, I heard a couple of days that Guentzel was pretty close to re-signing with the Hurricanes. Yeah. Emily Kaplan said before the draft that the deal was almost done.
What if this is the case? So you trade Guentzel's UFA rights to Tampa Bay. I don't know what they got back in return. That's irrelevant. And then the Hurricanes end up re-signing him. So whatever.
I don't think that's going to happen.
Whatever. That would be a generational move by the Canes.
It's a 3rd-round pick.
But still, though, you get something back, that would be wild.
It wouldn't shock me if Carolina just gave him the pick back.
Yeah. I mean, with Stamkos, though, I heard that the Lightning ended up offering $3 to $4 million a year, and that was before they cleared all the cap space.
That's kind of a slap in the face,
when they cleared all the cap space, when they talked to him yesterday on the 29th, they stuck with that offer, too.
I don't blame him for not. I think that's disrespectful.
That is disrespectful to your longtime captain.
He's still good.
He just put up a 40-40 season.
Yeah. He's still worth at least probably $8 million a year.
And then there's going to be a team that's going to throw him a bag. Some team's going to throw him 2 or 3 years for like $8 to $9 million.
I think a team that will probably be on Steven Stamkos' radar and wouldn't shock me if he signed with them is the Detroit Red Wings.
Mm-hmm.
You know, he has a history there with Stevie Yzerman. You know, he was the GM there for a while in Tampa before they won their cups. You know, Detroit needs some more scoring. You know, good veteran leadership there. You know, he's won 2 cups. He's been the captain of the Lightning since Marty St. Louis left. You know, I think they have a lot of cap space as well. I think that's a team that makes a lot of sense for me to potentially sign Steven Stamkos.
And to add to that too, Derek Lalonde, their current head coach, was their assistant coach from 2018 to 22. So the Lightning assistant head coach. So I think the connection there's pure, and I think he's going to want to go somewhere where he's going to feel comfortable. Mm-hmm. And I think Detroit's the number 1 spot. I would be shocked if it's not Detroit at this point.
Yeah, I think I would say Detroit's probably the favorite. Yeah, like I said, I would be more surprised if he didn't sign with the Red Wings.
You know what?
I think it's either he signs with Detroit or I think he goes back to Tampa.
I agree with that. I would love for him to go back to Tampa, but if I'm Stamkos, I'm saying fuck off and going somewhere else. It doesn't matter.
I mean, it's up to him what's more important. Like, I mean, he clearly wants to win still.
Mm-hmm.
He wants to get another Stanley Cup.
Don't go to Detroit then.
I think Detroit's an up-and-coming team. I think they are going to make the playoffs next year. I'll say it now. I know they still have some work to do in free agency. Their goaltending isn't the greatest situation, but I think with the right moves, I think they only missed the playoffs by a point last year. I think Washington, I think they got better. Washington,
Mm-hmm.
you know, these last couple days, you know, through drafts and the draft and trades, but I still don't think they're a playoff caliber team next year. I think they overperformed greatly. I think the Islanders might fall out of the playoffs too.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, we'll see. I mean, what's his name? Fuck, I can't remember his name. Goalie.
Islanders?
Yeah.
Sorokin?
Sorokin did not have a good year last year.
No, he didn't. I don't want to shut on Sorokin here real quick before we move into something else with the Lightning. Sorokin got a Vezina vote over a lot of goalies that had much better years.
That was probably just some Islanders writer who was just being an asshole. It was like a 5th place vote.
I have no idea. I just saw somebody make a tweet about it. And it was like, oh, guess which goalie got a Vezina vote? And it was like the Cord, UPL, and somebody else. And then Sorokin was there. And it's obviously Sorokin. But sticking with the Lightning, though, a Hedman extension is reportedly happening per Elliot Friedman. That should be announced by tomorrow. I don't know if there are any terms, any money that has been reported for it either, but it's going to be well-deserved. I'd expect it around that. I wonder if this was the case, too.
I mean,
clearing
if
cap
you're willing
space.
to, like, sign, because Victor Hedman's only a year younger than Steven Stamkos.
Yeah.
You know, like another Hall of Famer, franchise legend, wouldn't shock me if his number's retired by the Lightning as well. They're probably going to pay him. You know, he's still a top defenseman in this league. You know, they just traded away Sergachev, so they still they need him very badly still. He's going into the last year of his contract. You know, I just don't understand the disrespect with Stamkos, you know, because I think arguably he's had a bigger impact on the Lightning organization than Hedman, and it's not even close.
Right.
You know, I'm curious to see what kind of money. I'm assuming it's probably going to be at least 6-year contract extension.
With Hedman?
Yeah.
Up to 39 years old. You think that?
Oh, yeah.
Sorry, 40 years old.
He's still good. He has no shine.
He's still great. He's still one of the best two-ways in my opinion in the league. If
he retires early on him, they'll deal with him. You keep your legends happy.
I would, of course. Hedman 6 years seems kind of a lot for me. I mean, would I be shocked if he got 6 years? No, but if
I think it would be at least 5 to 6 year contract.
I would go 4 to 5. Because I think he's gonna get even more money than what he's getting right now. And right now he's getting 7.8.
Oh, he's probably gonna be about probably between 8.5.
I would give him 9. I would give him 9.
I mean, the salary cap's gonna be going up exponentially over the years. I mean,
Gary Bettman expects it to be at $100 million in a few years.
This is like, I just find this so funny with the Lightning. Is like you keep your legends happy,
right?
You know, I know the Lightning's window for the cup is probably, if not shut, very close to being shut. I mean, they're still probably going to be a playoff team next year, you know, especially if they bring in Gensel. And you have Stamkos, which they're doing the complete opposite with. He wanted to sign a new contract last summer. Mm-hmm. They never even talked. You know, he said during the season, he's like, you know, I'm frustrated. You know, I didn't even get a contract offer. I want to stay here. Like, let's find a way to make this work. Nothing. And then they give him that joke of an offer, $4 million a year. It's like, okay, clearly, like, there's something about, like, this doesn't sound like they seriously want to keep him. Which doesn't make sense to me because he's still really great.
He's their captain, their leader, one of the best players in franchise history.
Yeah.
But then you're gonna go around, you're gonna trade Sergachev, and everybody's like, okay, like, are they gonna offer like more money on a deal? Nope, they're not gonna do that. And reportedly, all that money is gonna go towards Hedman. Like, I love Hedman and everything, but I think first priority should be your captain, Steven Stamkos.
Because right now they have $16.5 million in cap space.
Realistically,
so if they sign Gensel, he's probably gonna get at least 8.
Dude, if they sign Gensel and then they also continue with the extension for Victor Hedman,
that's all their cap. I mean,
because next season
the Victor Hedman cap won't start till next year.
But he's still at 7.8.
I expect Gensel to probably get at least $8 million.
Imagine they're like, tomorrow comes out right away that Gensel signs a contract with Tampa. Hedman's extension comes out, and Stamkos is like, you know what? Fuck you. You know, listen, okay? I don't mean to be petty. I'm not Steven Stamkos. Okay, I get the Panthers have players to sign. If this really happened and the Panthers actually had cap space and they didn't have to re-sign Reinhart, Montour, and a bunch of other guys, I'll be like, you know what, Florida, what's good? Like, give me a contract. I'm going there. Like, I would be that petty if I was Stamkos. Now, does Florida have the cap space for that? They don't. Has Florida even thought about it? Probably not. Has Stamkos thought about it? Fuck no. I highly doubt that. But I'm just saying, from like a hypothetical standpoint, I think that would be absolutely hilarious if Stamkos did that. It's kind of petty, but
yeah, I don't know. It's just puzzling to me because, you know, Stamkos has had a chance to leave before. He almost did leave, but, you know, he clearly loves playing in Tampa Bay. He clearly loves being a part of the Lightning. I just don't. It makes too much sense for me just to keep him there. You know, let him retire. It's not like he's like he's bad. He's hurting the team. He had 40 fucking goals last year.
It's not like he had a 25-goal season with 30 assists.
Yeah, and he can't stay healthy. Like, he's still one of your best players. Like, him and Kucherov on the power play together are still elite.
They had the best power play in the league for a reason last season.
Yeah.
I don't get it. And Stamkos was your best player in round 1 against the Panthers, too. He had, I think, 5 goals, something like that, and your top stars had to combine 1 goal, whatever like that. So the fact that you're not willing to bring back Stamkos for more than $4 million a year, it's an absolute insult to him.
It is. I agree.
I do want to get into Logan Thompson and the Capitals in Vegas a little bit because Logan Thompson ended up getting traded yesterday right before he was about to sign autographs.
You know what? I just want to shout him out. You know, he's a legend for, you know, staying. It would have been completely understandable. Like, you know, you're not. I'm not sure if he was expecting to get traded. I know he did have a trade request submitted. You know, but you never know what's gonna. Maybe like he might have got a text from the GMs like, "Yo, we're close." But you know, you're at the draft. You know, representing the organization that you're probably going to be traded on still very quickly. You know, and he stayed. You know, it would have been completely understandable. He wanted to, like, yo, I just got traded. I gotta go figure shit out. Like, I'm sorry, I'm gonna have to cancel this. He stayed and signed everyone's autographs. You know, I think that's a really good person. This shows signs that he's a really good person, really great character, and I think this is a really good addition for Washington.
You acquire Logan Thompson. They also acquired Andrew Mangiapane the day before the draft or 2 days before the draft, something like that. The only thing that sucks is that they have no cap space, whatever. I don't know if
they have negative cap space right now. Well, that's not counting LTIR.
Yeah.
Because, they're going to get $9 million in relief because of Backstrom.
So you have some bit of cap space with that?
Yeah, they have like $3 million in cap space.
So,
yeah. I don't expect them to be very active in free agency.
They're not going to be active. And I don't, like, you go out and get Thompson, PLD, Mangiapane, 3 guys that I think are going to tremendously help this team. I know Charlie Lindgren was the reason, one of the reasons why the Capitals snuck into the playoffs.
I think they have a decent tandem now. I honestly think, like, if Thompson can stick in the net for a while, I think he could be a number 1 goalie. I thought he did a really good job in Vegas when Hill was getting injured.
Yeah.
I thought he did a good job shouldering the load and, you know, keeping that team competitive. I remember a couple years ago when they ended up missing the playoffs and how amazing he was on that last run, like the month of the season. Vegas was doing everything to not help him. They couldn't win any. Remember that? I don't know if you remember that game. It was like one of the. They were playing Dallas.
Okay.
And it went to like an 8-round shootout, and Vegas didn't score 1 goal in the shootout.
Oh, what? It was 1-0 Dallas in the shootout, and Thompson did everything he could.
After that, they got eliminated with that loss in playoff contention. He was just laying on the ice like he lost the Stanley Cup or something.
You know what? I love Logan Thompson is a great character.
He's one of the good guys.
What do you think about Vegas acquiring Schmid? Did I just say Schmoltz? Schmid and Holtz too. They ended up getting rid of Paul Cotter, as I stated earlier in the episode. But
I mean,
I real quick, I want to say something here. All the Devils fans saying that they got a good deal with this. First off, the Devils got fleeced. Okay, two, I had some dude saying Holtz will be lucky to get 6 goals next season, and I think that is absolutely ridiculous because Alexander Holtz is only 22 years old. I thought the Devils gave up on him too early.
yeah, but yeah, I remember people were shitting on Lindy Ruff when he was coaching. They was like, "Why isn't he playing?" And well, they traded him, so they clearly the organization.
Yeah, it's the org, not just the coach. Like,
so maybe he isn't losing his mind.
No,
I mean, last year, 82 games, he had 28 points. Not a horrible season. I mean, he was a first-round pick.
Mm-hmm.
You know, you want him. This is his third year, first full season in the NHL. You know, you expect him to be better. You know, I think if he can't succeed with Vegas, he'll probably be playing the. He'll probably get a chance to play in the top 6. You know, if he has a good preseason, I think he could. He's only 22, like you said. I think he could definitely bounce back. I think it was a good, buy low addition for Vegas.
Great addition.
But with the Schmid addition, they better hope and pray that Adin Hill does not get injured.
Adin Hill is the full-time starter now in Vegas.
Yes.
If Adin Hill goes down for an extended period of time like he did last season,
They're fucked.
they're fucked. Although,
I mean, I think the team's still decent enough. Like, if they go in, they were injured to hell and back last year, too, even with, their forward core and everything.
Oh.
I expect Thomas Hertl to be a little bit better, have some more chemistry. But, I mean, they could definitely shoulder the load of having, not have, I mean, they won a cup with Hill, and I think he played well, but he's not an elite goalie.
He had an elite start to the season, and then he started to falter a little bit.
Yeah, when he got hurt,
and then he got hurt.
He wasn't the same when he came
And,
back. He played well in the first round of the playoffs, I think, but...
And it's funny, too, because Logan Thompson didn't have a fantastic start to the season. Adin Hill goes down. It's like, shit, Vegas is screwed. Logan Thompson, at one point, through a 6-game stretch, was like 5-0-1 or 6-0. He had, a goals against under 1.5 and a save percentage of, 940 plus.
Don't forget a couple years ago, Logan Thompson played in the All-Star game.
Exactly.
So,
it is good to have this elite tandem that Vegas had.
I wouldn't say elite. It was a good tandem.
I thought it was
elite is pushing it.
I think Adin Hill and Thompson are both starters in this league.
Yeah, but I wouldn't call it an elite tandem was like Swayman and Allmark in Boston.
But at that point, that tandem was the best in the league. I don't think there was another tandem that even came close to that.
I don't know. I think you're using the word elite a little too loosely.
Do I think a little?
It was a good tandem for that team. Adin Hill plays well in that Vegas system. So and Logan Thompson I think did too. They complemented each other well. I wouldn't say elite though.
That's fair. Very good. I'll take very good. Oh, Dursey just re-signed with Utah 4x6.
Speak of the devil.
Yes.
I think that's a very fair contract for him. I think he's just going to keep getting better.
Mm-hmm.
I like Dursey a lot. That was a really good addition a couple years ago by Arizona, but now Utah.
All right, so I'm going to move on here to the Florida Panthers because they have a couple guys. They have Brandon Montour, Sam Reinhart's reportedly going to re-sign there for $9 to $9.5 a year. And then Carter Verhaeghe is probably going to get an extension too, reportedly. No details out on that yet. So the Panthers are going to be busy bringing guys back. They're trying to bring back the core. Don't blame them. Cap space was kind of tight with the Panthers before and after
they have about $20 million.
I mean, if Reinhardt's going to get $9, Montour's probably going to get what, 6
They're
to 7?
They're going to keep him.
They're trying to keep Montour. They're trying to extend Verhaeghe, and Aaron Ekblad is being shopped around on the trade market right now.
I don't know why you would try to keep Brandon Montour than trade Aaron Ekblad.
I 100%. I don't get it.
I mean, I think they're awesome when they're to get having them both, but I thought Montour was the obvious guy to let walk. He's 30 years old. Ekblad's only 28. I would probably extend Ekblad and just if Montour wants to take a short-term deal, a little bit around $5-6 million a year, yeah, keep him. But I would probably let him walk.
If Montour asks for a 6-year, $7 to $8 million deal,
no
at
one's
that
gonna
point,
give that to him.
At that point,
he had a bad year this year.
He played. I thought outside of the finals too in the playoffs. If you take into account playoffs, I thought outside of the finals he was okay.
I mean, let's pull up his stats real quick. Compared to the year he had before, he was coming back from an injury. I mean, 2022-23, 73 points, career high season for him. In the playoffs, 13 points. I mean, he had a decent playoff. He had 11 points, but regular season, 60 games, 33 points. I mean,
and he's supposed to be
point every other game, not bad, but he definitely took a step back. If he would have had another year like he had this year, he would probably be getting like $8 million a year.
But I mean, you look at it too, like look at from his just point production, 73 and 80 and 22, 23. That's a complete outlier.
Yeah, I think he kind of. Yeah, I mean,
before that, his career high was 37 the year before.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, and then other than that, in Anaheim, his career high was 32. Before that, Buffalo. Nobody does good in Buffalo, so I'll give him a break there.
I mean,
good for it. 1920, a plus 13 on the Sabres. That's impressive. Fucking pay him. Give him whatever he wants. He was a plus on the Sabres.
Oh,
in the Jack Eichel era, that is impressive.
I mean, Jack Eichel in that season absolutely carried. I mean, hard carried.
You know what pisses me so much about the Sabres is look back at their roster that they had for the COVID year, where they were like the worst team in the league, and it wasn't even close. They had Eichel.
They had good players.
They had Sam Reinhart. They had Taylor Hall. They had fucking
Evan Rodriguez.
No, Rodriguez was gone by
then. Was he gone
yeah.
then? Time flies.
Yeah, they had. I mean, at one point they had Ryan O'Reilly too, Vander Kane. Like they had good players.
Linus Allmark.
Yeah, they just. That organization is just a shit show.
Nobody works here. Oh my God.
I'm just so sick of the Sabres getting good players. Doesn't work here. We trade them and they go win a fucking cup.
It would be our luck. So this isn't gonna happen, but hypothetically, Stamkos comes here, has 20 goals in 75 games, has 45 points.
That would be a very Sabres thing to happen.
Oh my God. Oh, speaking of the Sabres, I know we're kind of off track. What I heard going around is that teams don't take Kevin Adams and the Sabres seriously when taking deals.
He got fleeced doing that trade he made for that. I don't even know the dude's name from Washington.
Malenstein.
I think he's a decent bottom six player. He's not worth a second round pick. So we have a group chat going for checking from behind where we just talk about hockey, random shit. And when that trade went through, we got a message from Chris in all capitals saying, "Who the fuck is this guy and why is he worth a second round pick? I hate you, Kevin Adams. We need to fire you." So now that some time has passed since the trade, I don't necessarily hate it.
I am with you.
I think they definitely overpaid by a lot. But I mean, the problem is, from what I'm hearing, is Kevin Adams has been very aggressive in trade talks. The problem is nobody wants to come to Buffalo. I heard they were potentially in on Mangiapane. Didn't want to play here. I can't imagine any of the top free agents want to come here. I want whatever fucking Chris smokes, because he was saying now we have Lindy Ruff. A lot of players are going to want to play here again.
Oh yeah.
Who the fuck is going to want to do that? It doesn't matter who the coach is.
He was like, oh, John Marino's on the block. Well, that connection with Lindy Ruff might help. No, the fuck it did not. I'll tell you that much.
I mean, in his defense, he's a diehard, so I'll give him a little bit of a break. But every time a player becomes available, he's like, the Sabres should get him. Adam Boquist got bought out today by the Blue Jackets. We should sign him. He's still young. And I was like, why the fuck would we sign him, dude?
We don't need him.
No, we have enough young defensemen.
Oh my God, dude.
I mean,
although I will give Adams credit. I do think the second round pick for Malenstein was a huge overpay. But Gergensen isn't coming back. Got to replace him. And I think Malenstein is going to be that hard, aggressive. But I heard he's aggressive on the forecheck. He can play shorthanded minutes. I believe he was 5th in the league or 5th on the Capitals in shorthanded minutes.
Last year was his first full season in the NHL.
He still, as a bottom 6 role, he had 21 points or 20-something points, though, in 81 games, 82. I think it was 81.
I still think he overpaid.
I think he's overpaid, too. But you want to know what Kevin Adams' explanation was? Yeah, I heard from Seth Appert, the Sabres assistant coach or associate coach, whatever, that teams were scared to play Malenstein in the AHL, so that's why they acquired him. I swear to God, that is.
Oh my God.
Oh.
Another thing I want to bring up pretty quickly too, as another thing where I think Kevin Adams got a little fleeced is, the Sharks traded with the Sabres to trade up, 3 spots. The Sabres got a second round pick and a first round pick, so they swapped first and they got an extra second. Later the next day, Montreal had moved up from 26 to 21, and they swapped picks. So they later in the draft, normally those draft picks are a little less valuable, and they gave up more to move up 5 spots in the 20s, and then fucking Edmonton trades for the last pick in the draft, the first round, a first-round pick next year. Like, dude, I think he got fleeced.
I didn't like that trade from the start, and
But
I mean,
my
like
problem with it is so if it's like draft night, like you're on the clock at 11, you think the guy you want to draft, because every team has a guy like they want to draft. Like before you go in, like when you go into the draft that night, you settle on who you're going to pick. And that might change. Like you'll probably have a list of like, okay, if he's gone, we're going to pick this guy, yada yada yada. But you usually have your heart set on one prospect that, if he's there, we're gonna pick him no matter what, unless like Celebrini somehow fell at 11. But that wasn't gonna happen. The guy the Sabres drafted was probably the guy they wanted the whole time. But why? Look, the thing that drives me crazy is some good defensemen ended up falling to around that pick. I know the Sabres don't necessarily need defensemen, but like they had one of the top end defensemen in the draft. Dickinson and Byam were available there, and so you're at the 11th pick. If you have that call, have that trade offer with the Sharks in the back, and the Sharks might end up paying more because if the guy they really wanted, like Dickinson was probably a guy they wanted to draft. That's why they moved up. If he's there at 11 and you're on the clock, the Sharks are like, "Fuck, we really want him." I'll add an extra third-round pick, or I'll add an extra pick. You lose so much leverage doing that a day early because it's the draft. You never know what's going to happen. Guys slide all the time. Just hold on to that pick, see what happens, and then that's what Philadelphia did. Philadelphia, they went off the board with their pick, but they clearly were going to pick him. And Danny Briere was like, he's probably going to be there later in the draft. I'm totally okay with trading the pick. He didn't get a ton for because Minnesota only moved up one spot, but still, that's how you do it. You hold on to your cards. You don't lose leverage. I mean, it might have been a situation where Mike Grier called Kevyn Adams, said, if you don't do this trade right now, the deal's off the table. You have, call me back in 10 minutes, talk about it, and then let me know yes or no, and then we're done. Call his bluff. Like, come on. Like, if they really wanted that player and he was available at 11, I'm sure Chris Grier, Chris Grier is the Miami one. Cool that two brothers are GMs in two different leagues, but I'm sure if he really wanted them, he probably would have called them and said, you know what, let's make this work.
And on top of it, too, even if Consta is your guy, he's not a reach at 11.
No, it's not a reach, but if you think he's going to, if the Sharks call and, they have the 14th pick, if you think he's going to fall to 14, you look, okay, who's behind us? Philadelphia, Minnesota. Well, Minnesota's probably going to take a defenseman, and you don't know who Philadelphia's going to pick.
They were all over the place, and they took Jet.
Yeah, so the Sabres still probably got the guy they wanted the whole time, because, when the team trades back, that's usually how they feel like, okay, our guy's going to be there. But why do it the day before? That's what maybe that was the best offer they got.
Maybe either that could have been the best offer they got, true, or I don't know what Kevyn Adams' thought process was.
On the night of the draft, how many times does that happen where, a player falls that a team loves and they end up maybe overpaying to move up to get him because they like that player so much?
That's better than overpaying the day before the draft. I totally get overpaying a slight to get a player that you really, really like. But
it's in the heat of the moment. So, let's say there's a guy that you had in your top 10 in the draft. You have, the 17th pick. And all of a sudden, he's there at, 13. You're like, okay, I don't think he's going to fall to 17. We had this guy in our top 10. We're going to, we want this guy. Let's just trade up with, Philadelphia or Minnesota, see if they're willing to talk. And, if they really don't want to move the pick, throw in an extra pick or something like that. Do something to sweeten the deal a little bit. Maybe overpay a little bit, but if you end up getting the guy you want and they pan out, that's worth it.
Yeah, Kevyn Adams' trades have been very, very almost like teams are like, listen, let me put it this way. Teams are straight up trying to take advantage of Adams. I've also heard stuff that Adams is being unrealistic and asking for too much for not enough in return. So teams are hanging up the phone on him. They're basically, like I said, they're treating him like he hasn't earned a spot in the GM, which I don't think he still has earned a spot. Players don't want to come here. Other GMs and other organizations think this dude's a joke. I totally get why they think he's a joke. And listen, Kevyn Adams, great person. He's not built to be a GM. He's a kiss up to the Bagulas.
Well, if the Sabres don't make the playoffs this year, which I think there's a very good chance that they don't, he's going to get fired.
He's gone.
So, at that point, if all your cards are on the table, okay, I'm sure the rest of the league knows that his back's against the wall and that he needs to make the playoffs this year. So I'm sure they're asking for a little bit more than they normally would. But, like, dude, like, if you have a chance to get a good player, even if you have to, okay, so if I get fired, I get fired. That's the next guy's job. I want to keep my job.
You have so much assets to trade for a top. Like, I'm sorry, we don't need about 8 prospects that are the same exact type of player at the same position.
Let's look at the Sabres forward core, like prospects, because it's getting pretty ridiculous. The forward.
It's too.
I mean, they have Isaac Rosen, first round pick, Yuri Kulich, first round pick, Noah Ostlund, first round pick, Matthew Savoy, first round pick, the guy they just drafted, first round pick. Anton Wahlberg was a second round pick. Like, their forward prospect pool is pretty loaded. I thought they were going to pick a defenseman because I think they needed a little bit, more help. Like, they needed a little bit. I know they have a lot of young defensemen like Power, Dahlin, Byram. But, Ryan Johnson, first round pick, wouldn't shock me if he made the team out of camp this year. Kevin Adams said even like at the end of the season, like, I'm willing to trade a prospect, to get a player that can help us win now. I don't know what the fuck he has cooking because they bought off Jeff Skinner. Okay, great. You have all this cap space now. You buy off Jeff Skinner, one of the guys on your team that you might not be able to contribute defensively, but he's good for at least 20, 30 goals a year. $32 million in cap space. Who the fuck are you signing?
I mean, this is my worst fear with this is, like, Jeff Skinner gets bought out and he doesn't find a replacement for him. And it's just... I mean,
like, what top-end free agents do you think realistically would sign with the Sabres? Because
if we're talking realistic, I think you're going to have to massively overpay for one to come here. Like, you're going to have to give them such a pay raise that's, like, they can't turn down.
I mean... Chris also said, like, oh, he hasn't ruled out an offer sheet. I don't know who the fuck he's going to offer sheet. Yeah, I mean, I was looking at the top free agents. Sam Reinhart, definitely, he's staying in Florida. Yeah. Not that he would have considered the Sabres anyway. Stamkos, I think there's like a 5% chance.
$12 million.
I mean, Jed Gensel probably is going to sign with the Lightning. March or so, I think they find a way to keep him in Vegas. I heard Matt Duchene is working on an extension with Dallas. Sean Monahan, you have to overpay to get here. Jonathan Drouin would be stupid to leave Colorado. Tyler Toffoli is a guy I would love for the Sabres to sign. I can't imagine he takes the Sabres off seriously.
He's not coming here.
I heard LA is potentially interested in bringing him back. Tarasenko either. He laughs if he gets a call from the Sabres. Teravainen still. I heard they had they had really strong talks with Carolina for Natchez. It's just he does not want to play for the Buffalo Sabres.
I don't blame him.
Stevenson, another guy they would have to overpay a lot to get here.
He's not coming here.
No. Anthony Duclair, I think, is another decent player.
That's an interesting one.
Yeah. I mean, but look, we're down to almost 30 on the list, of points last year on cap friendly, from players like UFAs.
Like your Jeff Skinner is a 30-goal scorer. Like, you got to replace that. Like,
I mean, he had 24 goals last year, but he kind of was bad the last half of the year.
I think he only had like 1 goal from the All-Star break to the end of the season.
He had like a hat trick against Seattle one night.
You're right.
But obviously he's not worth $9 million a year.
Totally agree.
But I know we've been going on for the Sabres for a little while now, but I don't see a way this gets better.
Somebody brought up a great point that I saw. I was like, if the Sabres want to get out of this, they have to bank on all their draft picks and all their prospects hitting. And somebody also brought up, it's like, at that point, Kevin Adams won't be the GM by the time that happens.
No, he's gone after. I mean, I think, for the most part, Kevin Adams has done a pretty good job drafting.
I think Kevin Adams as a GM isn't great making deals. I think he'd be great in their draft process.
Honestly, I don't think he is good at drafting. I think he has a very good scouting department.
You know what? You're right. You're right.
Jerry Fortin, for people that don't know, you probably never heard of him if you're not a Sabres fan. He was director of scouting since Kevin Adams, took over as GM. He got promoted to assistant general manager. He still runs the scouting department, though. I think he's largely responsible for why we've drafted so well. I've heard he's a very good scout. I mean, Zach Benson was a great pick. Jack Quinn,
JJ Peterka.
JJ Peterka was an awesome second-round pick. I mean, Owen Power, he was the first overall pick. You're not really going to fuck that up. Savoy, I think for the most part, he's drafted pretty well. And it's like, this is his 4th year going to Buffalo.
Honestly, outside of that one goaltender they drafted in the second round, they've been almost flawless in the draft. And at least in the first 2-3 rounds, in my opinion. Even they got Komarov in the 5th round, whatever you said. So,
yeah, I think they've drafted relatively well. I mean, I think he did good. as good as you could on the Jack Eichel trade. I mean, that was a horrible situation to begin with. You know, you get Tuck and Krebs back in the first-round pick, which turned into Coolidge, which I don't know. I don't think he is NHL ready.
I think that he should be you're one of the first guys you trade.
I would trade him.
Right now his value is high to a team that needs goal scoring too.
I mean, he's kind of like Jeff Skinner. Like he can score, but he doesn't play defense. He can disappear for stretches of games.
Yeah.
You know, they have some work to do on the forward course. So they have 1, 2, 3, 4. They have 8 guys. I'm sorry, 7 guys forwards under contract for next year. You know, I think though. I mean, 2 of them. So they have 2 RFAs, Peyton Krebs and Beckham Ellenstein. They'll sign them both. You know, they have at least 4 spots to fill for offense. You know, obviously you'd like to hope that Matt Savoy or Coolidge or one of their top end.
I think Matt Savoy can make the team.
I think he has to make the team. You know, obviously they're hoping that, but none of these guys I can't really expect to have a big impact. You know, I expect Tage Thompson, Dylan Cousins to have bounce back seasons. I mean, I hope Cousins needs to have a bounce back season. I'll give Tage the benefit of the doubt that he was hurt for most of the year.
One or 2 guys that I need. Dylan Cousins, you just said one of them, but also I think Alex Tuch does too.
I think Alex Tuch might have peaked. I think a couple years ago was probably going to be the best year of his career.
So are we saying like we should expect more of like the Tuch we saw last season, and then
I think he'll have a bit of a. I think he's right now. I think the best version of him is 50, 60 points.
I can see that. I would love Tuch.
He's a power forward. You know, he's 28. You know, I like Tuch a lot, but I think that year, a couple years ago, like Tage Thompson had 94 points. You know, he had 79 points in 74 games. I mean, he had 60 points, 59 points. He still had a good year. I mean, clearly it wasn't as good as the year he had before. You know, he had like 20 less points in the same amount of games. But, I mean, the Sabres as a whole couldn't really score last year. Dylan Cousins.
He had a horrible
year. I mean, I expect the Sabres to take a little bit more of a step back in scoring. Not necessarily that they're going to lose more because they're scoring less. I really expect Lindy Ruff to force them to develop their defensive game. And, you know, there will probably be some growing pains because, you know, I think under Don Granato, this is turning into a very long Sabres topic. But I'll wrap it up soon, I promise. Don Granato, I don't think you ever really had a plan. And once teams figured out how to defend against that speed, you know, I was at an event the Sabres had a few weeks ago where Lindy Ruff and Kevin Adams were talking to fans and people were able to ask him questions. And Lindy Ruff, like, brought up, you know, that we have to change how we play because when he was coaching the Devils, like, you know, that year when they barely missed the playoffs, you know, they were hard to defend. They were really quick. You know, once they got going in the neutral zone, it was hard to slow them down. But he said once they figured out how to defend them, they weren't very hard to play against. And that needs to change, obviously. You know, even if they would have made the playoffs that year when they barely missed, they would have got swept. They would have got their ass kicked by the Bruins.
Yes.
Because, you know, you look at a team like the Panthers who ended up upsetting it. That's a team built for playoff hockey.
That team also was coming off a President's Trophy, too.
Yeah, I mean, they had a major shake-up, though, trading Huberdeau. And, you know, they completely changed the way they played under Paul Maurice. They were a defense-first team. They could also score.
They had growing pains in the first half of the season. We saw once they got everything under control in the second half after the All-Star break, they made a run, made it in by 1 point, and they were down 3-1 to the Bruins, lost in 5 to Vegas in the finals.
Yeah, I mean, that was a miraculous run. But, you know, the last thing I'll say about the Sabres is Kevin Adams, your back's against the wall. You better have a good day tomorrow.
Fucking do something. Fucking dude, you're gonna have to overpay for one guy. It doesn't matter. Just we're not asking for the whole flip of the roster, overpay for everybody, give everybody.
He needs to get a top 6 forward.
Yes, you have to. You have to. I want to go on to the counterpart a little bit with the Vancouver Canucks because they made some moves earlier last week and they were active at first. Now I haven't really been active, but the first move, I'm going in chronological order here. They traded Mikheyev, Sam Lafferty, and a 2027 second-round pick to the Blackhawks for a 2027 fourth-round pick. Simply a cap dump, let's put it at that. They re-signed Dakota Johnson to a 4-year, $3.25 million contract and also signed Tyler Myers to a 3-year by $3 million contract extension.
I mean, I have no issue with the Tyler Myers contract. He's still like a decent, like, bottom 3 defenseman.
Love him. Very physical guy, too.
Dakota Joshua, I mean,
Do you think he's being paid based off how he played in the playoffs over anything else?
Definitely. I think if he would have gone to the open market, I think he would have got more money. I think he clearly wanted to stay there. The rumor had it was they were clearing cap space out to go get a big fish in free agency, potentially Jake Gensel. I heard was someone on their radar.
How much cap space do they have now?
They have about $12 million.
Okay. And that's before
14
okay.
with LTIR.
All right.
I mean, who they have on LTIR? Tucker Pullman. So I mean, I'm not sure if he'll play.
I have no idea
next year, but
I mean, they don't really have anybody else to re-sign except Elias Lindholm, who I don't think is coming back.
I mean, maybe they bring him back now that they're out on Gensel.
I mean, he's asking for 8x8, and I heard the Canucks aren't willing to do that.
I mean, what team would be willing to do that?
That is a wonderful question.
Yeah,
that I don't have an answer to.
I wouldn't necessarily have a problem giving him $8 million a year if it was a short-term deal.
I'd give him 4 to 5 for 8. Is 5 pushing it?
I think he's worth around $5 or $6 million a year if you want him on an 8-year deal. Mm-hmm. I thought he was really good for them in the playoffs. I think 8 is kind of asking a lot though, especially over an 8-year contract. Yes. I can't see him getting that on the open market unless like Kevin Adams is an idiot and overpays him.
And Big Z Nikita Zadorov is planning on to hit the open market as well tomorrow.
He's going to get paid.
He had a great season for Vancouver.
I heard Toronto's interested in him. They also brought in Chris Tanev's contract rights, and rumor has it they're getting a deal done, so he's probably not going to hit the free open market. But yeah, Zadorov is going to probably get a lot of interest around the league.
It'll be wild though if Chris Tanev agrees with the deal with the Leafs, and then they also end up grabbing Zadorov too.
Very well could happen.
I would be praising the Maple Leafs for that.
I think for the most part, the only thing I don't like that they've done so far is I think they gave Joseph Woll a little too much money. If he plays like he could play like he did. I mean, did that contract get done?
Yeah, it was reported, but it won't be official until tomorrow.
Okay, normally even they have the reported contracts on here.
That's weird.
But if he could play like most of a season like he did in that playoffs against the Bruins, I mean, he could be a bona fide number 1 goalie. So they're kind of taking a leap of faith there. He's had issues staying on the ice, but it's a risk. They don't really have any better options right now. So
can you scroll up to the forwards real quick? Because Max Domi just signed a contract.
I think that's a very fair deal.
4 years, 3.75 a year.
I think that's a very team-friendly deal. I think he's a good second, third line player. I think he works well in the Maple Leafs.
I'm gonna be completely honest with you. Hypothetically, if they get a deal done with Tanev and Zadorov and sticking with Domi and Joseph Woll, they obviously need to sign a backup goalie. I would highly doubt Samsonov's coming back.
No.
So they need to get a backup goalie this in free agency. But I think Trevling's done a pretty decent job. We'll see what's going on with Marner because it's 50-50 right now with him.
I heard they're working on an extension.
I heard they're working on an extension. I've heard that they're also looking at certain type of deals in trade, but I
don't know. I can't see him getting
I would
moved
be shocked
right
if he doesn't sign.
I think they would have moved him by now if they had a chance.
You think by now?
Yeah. I mean, he didn't have a great playoff for them, but he's still probably the third best player on their team obviously behind Matthews and Nylander. I mean, Tavares is most likely his last year as a Leaf unless he takes a team-friendly deal to, stick around for the end of his career. He's clearly not worth $11 million a year anymore. I think somewhere between 5 and 6 would be more appropriate for Tavares.
Yeah.
But, I mean, you never know what could happen. I think the Leafs still have a lot of work to do to make themselves a little bit tougher to play against. Bringing in Tanev and potentially Zadorov, I think, will go a long way. It's just they still live and die by goaltending.
There is a massive contract extension that happened, too, that has all of the NHL fans wondering what's going to happen with Askarov because Saros signs a massive contract extension, 8 years by $7.74 million. Teams, right after that happened, started calling the Preds and Barry Trotz left and right about Askarov and what the Predators want. They want an NHL-ready player. I think they want a high-end prospect. If they were to get something done before the draft, it would have been like a high overall draft pick too. Obviously, didn't happen. But the ask for Askarov is going to be kind of mighty. And
Yeah, I was surprised.
I don't get it.
I was surprised. I mean, Askarov's he's a very good goalie prospect.
Mm-hmm.
He's only 22. He killed it in the AHL last year. I think he could potentially be, a really good number one goalie. He probably needs a couple years in the NHL. Wouldn't shock me if he's the backup this year to Saros.
If I'm Askarov, I hate that.
Oh, I know, but I mean, you want to play, don't you?
That is true. I mean, I guess like if you're looking at long term for Askarov obviously, I would assume thinks that he's a starter already. But if I'm Askarov, I look at it in a bigger picture. I'm like, I sit behind Saros, learn from him. I get some playing time. I get my feet wet in the NHL.
And if he plays well as a backup, Nashville will get a ton for him.
Nashville. If I'm Nashville, I bank on that. I bank on Askarov.
I think that's why Trotz didn't trade him, because I think right now, a lot of teams would be interested in Askarov. He's a good young goalie. Hasn't really played much in the NHL. I think if you have like a full year, he plays like 20, 25 games, and he plays well, I think then the asking price goes way higher.
So if he gets traded, it probably won't be until minimum next offseason if they do.
Yeah. I mean, he's got 1 year left on his deal, and he's an RFA. I think he plays the whole year with Nashville unless they get like an offer they cannot refuse. As a good backup to Juuse Saros, he gets his feet wet in the NHL. He plays more than a couple games like he did last year. Sticks around with the team a little longer, and then, clearly they've committed to Saros as their long-term goalie. I'm kind of surprised that they did
Signed until he's 38, which is wild.
Yeah, I mean, he's one of the best goalies in the league. I mean, I think he's worth it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, but I think Trotz is doing a really good job with the Predators, though.
This is my thing. I do agree. He's done a great job. They have so much salary cap space. They barely have to re-sign anybody, and the people they do have to re-sign
aren't people to very smart contracts.
Exactly.
I really like Ryan O'Reilly, $4.5 million. He was really great for them last year. Gustav Nyquist was amazing.
I don't think he's gonna.
No, I think he'll take a step back this year. But you got Philip Forsberg was extended. I don't know if Trotz was around when they signed it, but I think he's made very smart signings. Luke Evangelista, I think, was a really good young player.
Thomas Novak at 3.5, I think it's a good deal too.
Yeah, I think Barry Trotz is gonna be just as good as a GM as he was a coach.
And the only guys they have to sign are RFA, Jarrett Anderson Dolan, and then the UFAs Anthony Beauvillier, Keller Sherwood, and then
those
Jason
are
Zucker.
rentals they got
exactly.
That line.
So you have so much cap space to work with. You can go out and get. I said this in our free agency video that I put out. Nashville Predators can go out and get themselves an elite goal scorer to put up there too, and they could still be great with cap. Yeah. I've said it before. It's I know Detroit has come around with Stamkos. That's been around. But if Nashville snags him from Detroit, I would not be shocked. It's closer. I get the connection with Yzerman and Lalonde and everything with the coaching staff organization. But
we'll see. I mean, Nashville's an intriguing option. Trotz has a lot of respect around the league.
And you're not moving far from Tampa either.
Yeah, I mean, Nashville is a very desirable city for a lot of players to live in. I've heard Nashville is a very nice place to live. We'll see what happens. I mean, they have 2 first-round picks next year. They have 2 second-round picks next year, and they have 3 third-round picks. So they set up for good future success. I think they're still a few moves away from being a true cup contender. I think they'll be a playoff.
They're
team
going back to the playoffs.
Year. I can't see them being much more than a first-round exit. They
They
might upset a team. It depends who they play in the first round.
I got to see how the offseason shakes up before
next week could be a completely different discussion.
They could go out and sign Gensel, Stamkos, and we could be talking about here oh man, this team might be the best team in the West. That's just satire. Don't worry.
The NHL is crazy. Anything could happen. They can get a top dog in free agency. Like you said, they have a lot of cap space, so you never know what could happen. Like I said, this time next week we could be having a completely different conversation about what's going on.
I don't know if you want to talk about this topic or if we should end it off here on this note, but John Gibson still being talked about. Because this is the third or fourth offseason in a row we're talking about this.
I can't really see them getting a lot for him. I think his peak value is probably 2 or 3 years ago. I mean, he's still a good goalie, and Anaheim's a hot mess too. I think they reached in the draft. You never know what the player could end up being, but Gibson still has 3 years left in his contract. Not a horrible salary cap.
I think you're gonna have to wait a year before you.
I think he needs to have a balance. Last year, 2022-23, 3.99 goals against average, .899 save percentage on a really bad Ducks team, really bad. So he wasn't really getting help much defensively. And honestly, in 53 games on that Ducks team, those aren't really that bad.
That Ducks team was one of the worst in the entire league.
I mean, and they were arguably worse defensively this year. But his stats did go down a little. I mean, smaller goals against average, but a lower save percentage at a .888 save
which
percentage.
Is like horrible backup type of numbers.
Yeah, those aren't good numbers for a starting goalie. I mean, he played some less games this year. Back when Anaheim was good, he was an elite goalie. I mean, constantly like 925, 926 save percentage.
He was great.
I mean, in his defense, like he's not in a good situation in Anaheim. That team's going to be bad for a few.
You know
more
what
years.
I think is going to happen this season? Now, Ducks fans, if you guys are listening or watching, let me know if you guys think this is going to be the case too. John Gibson starts the season as a starter. We're going to slowly go through the season, and Dostal's going to slowly take the job away from Gibson.
I mean,
I think that could happen.
I really, unless Gibson has a big bounce back year and he looks like his old self, I can't. Because it sounds like Anaheim wants a lot for him in a trade.
You're not going to get a lot right now.
Yeah, at one point he was one of the premier starting goalies in the league.
Yeah.
He's not anymore. I'm sure a team would be trade for him that has a bit of better defensive structure. But right now I can't see them getting a whole lot for him unless you have some idiot GM who's willing to overpay. But I think he'll play this season for the Ducks at least.
I think minimum this season. You're gonna have to wait until next offseason.
He has he posted above a 900 save percentage.
Goes against around 2.93. I think you'll be.
I think you can get probably at least a first round pick for him. It's hard to find at least decent starting goalies. They've gotten so valuable.
They've waited a tad too long to try to trade him, but that's just me, though. Anyways, that's going to end it for today's episode. If you guys stayed for the entire episode over on YouTube, notification bell, subscribe down below. All of our socials are down there as well. Thank you guys for listening on Apple and Spotify, and we'll see you guys in our next episode.